I've been busy over the past month getting everything ready for the first ever public playtest of the game. So while anybody normal would have been polishing for the demo, I kind of got carried away in adding new content. I built a couple of new mini-bosses that will find interesting ways to kill your team. I rebuilt the gathering mechanics and added relics for gathering. I rebuilt the fishing mechanics and added relics for fishing, as well as all of the new specialist enemies that I've designed to kind of shake up each encounter. I say this every time I add a bunch of new content, but the game is in a really great place now, and I actually finally feel confident enough to let people playtest it. So, for the first time in 15 months, the game is publicly playable. If you want to try it out, you can request playtest access on the Steam page, or join the Discord and chat with everybody about the game. So this will be the first time ever somebody other than me or my wife has played the game, and this playtest will form the basis of the public demo for the Steam page that will come out this year. And if you're interested in the game, wishlisting Tales for the Long Nights goes a real long way to helping me out. The principle of any good tactics game is, unsurprisingly, to make you think tactically. And the previous version of the game just didn't do that well. I mean, it was really fun, but you never really had to think about who you would attack first and why. To fix this, I decided to add in some new specialist units. These are stronger versions of our standard units, but with mechanics that you actually have to consider when you're thinking about how to take on the encounter. They're a great little middle ground between your standard enemies and your mini-bosses, causing you to actually have to think tactically about how you're going to approach a fight. A great example are these Riftwalker enemies I've added. They function very similarly to a standard enemy, but once they finish their turn, they teleport away from you. And this causes you to not just spend all of your abilities whenever you have them. You have to weigh up spending them instantly, or maybe potentially saving your movement abilities for after a unit gets out of range. Sticking with the theme of having to focus on movement tactically, I've added these new burst type enemies that at the end of their turn will explode in an area around them, causing you to have to start thinking about positioning of your melee and range units to spread them out and not group up around these dangerous units. The evolution of this were units that would explode on death, causing you to have to get your melee units away from them before you finish them off. Just a couple of these units made a playthrough feel so much more tactical, because I was having to make so many more active decisions in combat. So I thought, what else would make you think? So I created specialist summoning units that would bring allies into the battlefield. So maybe you prioritize taking out the summoner first. If you leave them at the back alone, they're more likely to just overwhelm you with units. The evolution of this were enemies that, when they died, would leave behind a kind of seed that, if you didn't kill quick enough, would turn into a different unit. I got really into designing new enemies that looked like they would take advantage of these specialist abilities. Realized they didn't really have anything for the tanks, so I created some new reflection specialists that will reflect melee damage to all units around them, either making you prioritize them with range damage or try and get all of your squishier melee units away from them while you fight them. And with that, everything just felt completely transformed. These new units, they had more personality, and they made you actually think about how you would approach them. I still find myself kind of stopping and thinking mid-combat about how to approach something, rather than just instinctively knowing what's best to do. And this is when something absolutely fantastic happened. I was playtesting the game and trying to fix bugs, and I realized that every time I went into a new run, I wasn't just jumping out of it in 5 minutes once I'd found new bugs. I was playing it for 40 or so minutes because I was really enjoying it and I was getting really invested. This is a clip from one of the runs where it all just clicked for me, and I knew I'd got it right. I had just unlocked a couple of new abilities for my infiltrator from the previous encounter, and I had come up with this idea for a build in which I constantly regain AP through killing and backstabbing, allowing me to extend the turn length of my infiltrator unit. I threw them all down, put my units in place that I knew I needed them, and tried it out. So I first teleport my infiltrator in, buffing them up with strengthened. Then I need to get the target units down to a low enough health level where my infiltrator can execute them and regain their AP. Making sure I don't forget to properly debuff the targets with the paladin. Then I can go ahead and execute the full chain using my first execute to regain AP, which gives me enough for my second ability that regains AP on a backstab, giving me enough for my third ability that allows me to attack this target. All of a sudden, a clever use of my build has let me go from 2 abilities in a turn to 4. All of a sudden, this testing run I didn't want to end because I'd built something that was just so satisfying to use and made me feel good when I executed something so tactical. This was when I knew I was ready for the playtest, so I decided to finish up by adding in a whole load of new mini-bosses. I'm not going to spoil their mechanics, I'll let you get killed by them yourself, but I'll just tease them here. Quite importantly, I wanted them to feel rewarding, so the one big thing I added was unique mini-boss loot. Each of the mini-bosses has their own little piece of crafting materials that you can use to create really powerful but very limited weapons and armor. Take down the Enraged Minotaur and you can use its horn to craft a special helmet, or a spear. Take down the Mountain Hulk and its hardened skin can be used to craft special armor or shields. This is just a great way of rewarding you from these mini-bosses without giving you the reward instantly, making you go away and actively collect the other materials that you need to craft such powerful gear for your team. Along with this, making sure everything felt polished for the playtest, I redid the gathering and fishing minigames to just make them feel a little bit more up to date, as well as redoing their loops to make them a little bit more rewarding. And then I did something that I've been putting off for about 14 months and actually designed the player character. So this is the traveling merchant who you'll be playing as on your journey, and I think aesthetically he fits pretty perfectly into the world while standing out enough to be unique. And to finish the full combat loop, I just had to add the consumables. I mean, I had the items in the game, they just didn't do anything, so actually adding the ability to consume them in combat and heal your team, or use more offensive consumables like some consumable spells or a throwable dagger. You're not meant to have loads of them. I mean, they're meant to be quite limited, and the healing in the game is still meant to be really stingy outside of the campfires. So to give this a little bit more purpose, I redid the campsites. Now when you get to the campsites, you've got a certain amount of stamina that you can spend, and you can either spend it to rest for longer and heal more, or potentially gather some materials around the camp or craft. It's the idea of having to choose a trade-off rather than having to choose a reward that makes the decision-making feel so much more impactful. You can sit at camp and you can say, well, I could heal my team, or I could maybe heal them a little bit less, gather some materials for a recipe I'm trying to craft. Add this to the rough billion quality of life improvements I've added, like the team auto placement, the ability auto equip, or the item overflow, and it all just feels so much more polished, even than it did a month ago. You know, it's seeing these improvements that made me feel so confident to put it out into the world and let you try it out. I mean, I've got a huge case of developer blindness right now, being the only person who's really played the game. I don't know where it fails and I don't know where it succeeds. I only know what I think about it. So if you'd like to give some feedback and try it out early, or even just get in contact with me and chat about the game, feel free to join me over on the Discord. It's where I'll be handing out playtest keys to anybody who wants to join in. And with all of that, that's everything that I did this month. I am so excited to have people play Tales for the Long Nights for the first time ever. So jump on over to the Steam page and try out the playtest. And it would mean the world to me if you wanted to wishlist the game on Steam or subscribe here on YouTube. I mean, they both go so far in helping out, and they're both free. So a huge thank you for anybody who stuck all the way through to the end, and I'll see you next month.